Well, hello everyone. We're going to be looking at an introduction to MCOM 160, Introduction to Film. I'm Terry Harris. I'll be your instructor this summer, and we're going to run through the first PowerPoint, which is an overview of the course. It is labeled MCOM 160 Zero Course Overview Summer. So I hope you'll take a look at that on when you have more time, but this is what it'll look like, and we're going to go through the actual syllabus at the same time, but we're going to start off with this and show you different meanings, such as we're going to look at Dirty Harry from 1971. Just to give you a little overview of it, it's the opening moments of it. You'll see it in PowerPoint form, but you can probably look it up on YouTube. And then we're going to go into the syllabus right now so we can keep this moving along. If you ever have any problems with the course, accessing any information, any PowerPoints, give me a email or any way you can, whether it's D2L or my regular email, so that you can get answers to that. But this is a look at how they manipulate content in a movie through a mixture of images and sound to create art and or entertainment. Because of this, there are many different perspectives to consider when looking at motion pictures and the meaning of them. And I'll be giving you little tidbits that are not in your textbook, but that way you can get a good idea of what's going on. The film always reflects popular culture. That's how they make their money, but also how they create their art. So they do this by showing you the different lifestyles in the films, how values have changed from time period to time period or by subject matter, the beliefs that are withheld in the film, attitudes of that time period all covered. Films can be studied from a historical perspective. They can also be looking at artifacts, as in what we used to do to communicate, what we used to do socially, and look at it from a political point of view. The film industry is also a business. They're out to make money, and you need to remember that all the time. If we look at what we're trying to do in the film, we're going to look at technology, because that always fascinates people at times. It can be a little jargon-oriented, so I'll try to cut through that. But try to remember each term that I give so you can use it in your film evaluations and analysis. They always create a message in the film. Your idea is how you interpret that message, and this is the fun part of film. You can interpret it differently than they actually intended, and that can become part of the whole experience. So they try to use persuasion and at times propaganda to make you think a certain way or reflect on what you're seeing. Intercultural communication is how we all interact as one group of people when there's a mixture of races, ethical perspectives, ethnic culture. All of that plays a part in how we communicate. And we'll look at it as far as the individual, how directors influence the film industry, those that write the scripts, called screenwriters, the actors, the cinematographers, the editors. They're all interconnected. They all have a purpose. They all know their jobs, but each is an individual that tries to reflect what the director is pushing in the film. In syllabus, you'll see that we have a long section on exactly what film is or how to relate to it. Film is an art form that can be studied by its aesthetics, that culture within each shot, or themes, how they develop a theme around a color, a person, a subject. Storytelling is a significant part of the film industry, of the moment that they're capturing and trying to communicate. And by examining that, the narrative structure of how it's used, the conventions used in genres, it all creates a moment. Some are successful, some aren't. It demonstrates the knowledge of the diversity of values, beliefs, ideas embodied in the human experience. So if we look at different types of experiences, something you haven't thought about is broadening your perspective on it, but always remember how they're trying to influence you at that moment. Disciplines within the arts humanities, they will reflect their upbringing, their educational experience, and what they're trying to do with film. So they can create an aesthetic understanding of a situation, time period, or culture, and they can use a interpretive style to create formal elements of literature, literary, or fine arts. You're going to learn the cinematic vocabulary, enough that you'll be able to use that in your papers, which is very important, and how you describe the aesthetics of the moment that you're talking about. But you'll also have exams online for a certain time period and discussions that you'll participate in together. So be sure that you go over that and understand how you do that. We'll get into that more later. And there'll be quizzes, 10 quizzes over the 11 chapters to get you a different perspective of the types of questions you'll experience in exams before you take them, but also just to see that you're comprehending what's going on in the book and in my lectures. They'll identify film genres. That's the type of movie. So if you're an action, adventure type of film goer, all the fantastic movies that are coming out that show a lot of action and intrigue, that's a type of genre. And being able to identify that when you watch a film is very important. There'll be group projects, meaning that you'll discuss it with each other, and then you write your own paper individually to get that grade. And we'll screen some movies so that you experience how to do it first. And there's also an international film that can intimidate some, but as long as you get the idea, then you go with that. And some will have specific questions, others will be based on discussions. So you'll be able to identify different interpretive theories such as feminist. We look at that through culture, ethnic, gender, class, and structure within the movie, scene analysis, and then exams will relate to that a little bit, as well as assigned papers, which is your film discussions. You'll identify a film's themes or message as you interpret them, and even if you disagree with your group that you're put in, it's still there, and you're still able to talk it through and develop a different perspective from what you hear from them. So all of this happens through not really a group presentation, but more of a discussion forum where you write one comment, so another student will write their own comment, and from that you're creating a look at the film, and you write a paper from that discussion. So that really should be more of a group discussion than presentation. Grading, we'll have 2 exams, one in the middle of the summer semester, and one at the very end. There'll be 10 quizzes, so together the exams are 50 points, 50 questions for 2 points each, so that will be 2 exams at 100 points for 200 points. Quizzes are 10. They'll each be 10 points, more of making sure you understand the terms that you're keeping up with the pace of the course. So that'll equal 100 points, so the first 2 are 300. Your group discussions with your papers will be the analysis, and there's 3 of those at 50 points for 150 points, so we're up to 450. And then the international film screening is one where I give you specific questions to answer. You can watch the film and fill them in as you go through it, and that's 50 points, or a total of 500 points. Grading scale is a basic 90% above is a A, 80% B, etc. If you're sitting at 89.5, you're automatically bumped up. If you're below 89.5, it means you're within a few points of the next one. I'll review your discussion, see if I was a little harsh at times when you grade papers at different moments. It's hard to be consistent with the words used. Grammatical errors, spelling errors can all influence that. So if you're in that borderline between any of these, I will be looking at it to make sure you're getting a fair grade. Group discussions. There'll be 3 or 4 to the group, depending on how many are taking the course. That will be done early, so you know who it is. You can make contact by email. The problem, of course, in the summer situation is people take vacations. You're with your family. There's a holiday, major holiday, that disrupts it. So I try to balance that out with dates, but there is some flexibility based on your personal situation. So be sure to share those with me, and I'll try to get back to you as we go through that. So the discussion is you share your thoughts on the movie you viewed. That's worth 10 points. It doesn't mean you just do one entry. You may have to do 2, 3, 4 to make it a good experience for everybody. Then each student will take one of the 4 of the 5 areas, and for 10 points each, you'd bring out moments, important factors, use film terms in your paper for those 4 of the 5 categories. We'll get to those down here. And then you submit a paper by Dropbox by the deadline for those 4 of the 5 categories, and those are based on your interpretation of the film. And you can change the categories to fit what you think are important and grab moments from the film to defend that. So they are the theme or message of the film, the mise-en-scène or framing, and the mise-en-scène involves sound, images, color use, lighting, all of that. We'll go over that before you do it. Editing, culture. Culture is more of what each film tries to grab as far as how are women portrayed? What time period is it? How do they reflect that time period well? Many things like that. So, and then symbolism is what you see in the film that represents something of importance that you can use to connect the message or theme with what's being done. So I know it's all pretty quick, but we want you to get you going on this. I want you to be thinking of those 5 categories. You pick 4 to write on, and it can vary with each film. The PowerPoints will be on D2L. The quiz will be under the quizzes section. And you know D2L well enough that if you have trouble with it, if you lose an internet connection, if you have a 0 for a grade, when you know you've done it, we just have to communicate, go searching for it, make sure it's recoverable, and get it to me so it can be graded. Any quiz that's done is double checked because there'll be some fill in the blanks at times, and that can be a simple capitalization or a misspelling can get you a 0 grade. But I go through those, and if I think you've captured that word well enough and you know what you're talking about, you'll get the points. So be sure and question that as you go through each quiz and make sure there wasn't an error made in one way or another. So the PowerPoints on D2L review all the information you need. It puts the key terms out in front of you for each chapter, and you use these terms for your group discussions, so you want to be in tune with that when you do it. So let's run through quickly an example. This is my first movie that I went to that had a R rating, and for a 17-year-old at that time, it was kind of a big event. You don't get to do that much, so mine's Dirty Harry from 1970. I think I may have seen it early really late in 1970. And the whole idea is it captured all these different elements of culture or representation in the movie. Some are very quick, others are in your face. But I mean, the justice system, racism, terrorism, vigilantism, orgies, homosexuality, religion, the military veterans and how we looked at them back then, voyeurism, bureaucracy, blackmail, revenge, and torture are all covered in Dirty Harry in some way. So the first image you'll see in the movie will be names and images, and here you see the muzzle of a rifle that comes out in what's called a dissolve. So the badge is actually up front. They dissolve to a shot of the muzzle, and you see the symbolism there. Justice versus violence. Go to the next one. You see the main villain in the shot, a very long, wide shot, and in the background is a swimming pool. Then they use an iris shot. It's a matted image, so you can use the term matted or iris, and you'd see this shot. And of course, it looks like what he is seeing through the scope of his rifle. And from there, it moves on, and the woman is killed. It begins the whole tracking of a military veteran who is trying to blackmail the city of San Francisco to give him money, or he's going to kill people. Very simple like that. Dirty Harry, on the other hand, is more of an anti-hero. You can call him a protagonist. There's different terms to use. But this is a low-angle shot, meaning the camera is low, pointed up at Harry. You've got the main threat right there. So this is called low-angle frame composition. And the idea is he is looking at a criminal, serving justice, if you will, that type of thing. Another shot, later on in the movies, you see the red tint. Red can represent the color of violence or a threat. and you notice he's watching something through binoculars. He's searching for the main criminal in the story that's already shot 2 or 3 people. But he is looking at something different. And what's he looking at? A woman in a more of a bikini outfit. And in that, she eventually takes off all her clothes, goes to a door, lets people in. So it's kind of an orgy setting, but something that Dirty Harry should not be looking at. He tracks down the criminal, the person who's doing the violence, tortures the person to get information about a young woman that he's abducted, a 15-year-old, I believe, and hidden her to get money. And he's using illegal justice to get that information. So the whole idea of doing what he needs to do to get the information to save someone. Then towards the end of the movie, you have the confrontation of the main villain continually winning out, but you can see he's pretty beat up at this point because of all the things that have happened. And justice is about to be served Dirty Harry style. You have an extreme close-up of the main weapon, which he brags about often in the movie. And you can see that when he does it, he is at a low angle again. And this is even more extreme low angle, looking down at the villain to serve justice. So that's all you'd be doing in looking at a movie. So we're going to go over it quick. We're going to plot. Former military veteran holds a city hostage. He is the antagonist. He is a bigot. He mentions that often. So it's a stereotype of military veterans at the time, and he's more of an anti-hero. Not an anti-hero, that'd be Dirty Harry, someone who does not do things properly to serve justice. Symbolism in the movie is military vets are displaced, not respected by American culture. African Americans are the ones that do all the bad things. They rob banks, they are poor, and the Catholic Church is represented as just because it helps out the poor in it. The vigilante justice seems to be the answer in the movie, and that's represented through Harry's actions. And city government, the police, are represented as a weak, that they would give the money to the person rather than trying to keep that person from hurting people. Frame composition, you'll notice that Harry is the dominant person in it. He's predominantly shot at a low angle, and that will change as the film progresses when he's actually taken in and beaten. He's at a high angle looking down at him as he's being hurt. The use of violence shows authority in the framing, and the helicopter shot is used to show the abusive nature of Dirty Harry's approach. Close-ups are done many times with the main character so you can see the expression on his face. Editing is classic cutting. That's most of what we cover the first 3 or 4 chapters. We get into that later in the semester. So just watch how each shot is put together with the significant moments as a standard mixture of medium, close-up, and then, of course, the key weapon being used. A mixture of jump cuts during violent beating scenes, meaning that they're jarring or disruptive. That's a different type of editing that we'll get into later. Culture analysis is a gay is represented as being intimidated, will do anything he's told. Hispanics are shown from an ethnic perspective. A lower class African Americans are the ones that get hurt all the time. It's the 60s and 70s drug culture. Voyeurism is prevalent throughout, where we're spying on everybody. And then the gay San Francisco culture would be part of your cultural analysis, and that's what you'd watch for. Then finally, scene example. We'll put that online. Watch for the establishing shot that you see in that scene. It's the actual bank robbery. Watch for the camera angles and how they change. Look in the background. You'll see an American flag, a sailor, and all those things show how they're representing culture at the time. Editing. First, it's a slower pace where the shots do not change as rapidly until the bank robbery begins and all the shooting starts. Then it increases in editing tempo. Stereotyping. When you watch the scene, you hear a woman scream, and that shows you that male dominance is part of the Hollywood structure yet, that women are seen as weak and cannot help. And of course, he uses his famous line in the scene where he tells you about his weapon and whether he doesn't have a clue on whether he fired 5 or 6 shots. and that all establishes Dirty Harry's culture. So when we begin, we're going to look at Chapter 1, looking at movies, and you'll see exactly what we're getting into and get a good overview that way. So the syllabus is online. I've got it here. I'm going to move it over a little bit, and you'll see the basic information here. Use my SD State email to contact me, and that way I'll get back to you quicker. It's right on my phone. If I see it and I'm not busy, I'll give you a response or contact you about what is going on or what your situation is, and you can get a better feel for it. Never hesitate to get in touch with me. We start officially on May 30th. Some of you have started already, and we'll be able to get you going. But if something happens in your life, you need to let me know so we can make you comfortable and make sure you're getting the experience you deserve in the course. Contact information. When I do grading, I will get back to you as soon as possible. Most quizzes, as soon as the deadline's done, I'll be able to get those in, and you can tell me if there's a problem or if you have questions on the answers, that type of thing. Check news on D2L. That's in the middle part of the course. I'll be giving updates there. I'll put the scene examples there, and you'll be able to get going on those right away. And just think of what you need to experience, and we'll be able to make this a good, solid experience. And if you have troubles, we need to get those solved so that you keep on track and you have some fun during the summer. Catalog description is right there. I'm not going to run through everything. Much of it I did, so I'm going to slowly work down. The textbook is Barsum, looking at movies. Online course means that information is contained there. You're doing it off-site. If you have any issues with D2L, really get to me as fast as you can. I use imdb.com. You'll see that on the D2L page on the left side, and other ways to research film and to look for what you're trying to get out of it. This is the other basic policies you can go through on your own. And then AEJMC is the professional accreditation group we are associated with in journalism and mass communication. That lets you know of what we're going and looking at when we do this course. Here's the rundown of each of the areas. Review those, see if you have any questions on them. I've gone through exams and quizzes and your film discussions. And then the international film, you'll notice there are no films set up at this now. They're all to be announced because I'll use Netflix. Netflix will give you the information you need on the film. And if it's not on Netflix, I don't pick it. That way you have a reliable source. But you can rent the movie. You can, if you have it already, you can use it to watch it from there. There's no other system available. And with Netflix, they usually give you a 1 month free use. I think that's still in place. I hope it is. And that will make a difference with you as well. So each week is laid out here, and how we look through each part. So the first week is short because of the holiday. So Tuesday, we'll be getting into it, but if you want to start early, I'd recommend it. Do chapters 1 and chapters 2, and then the quiz will be up. Once you're ready to take it, you should be able to get it done. You have 10 minutes for those quizzes, so don't think you have forever to look up answers or whatever. Know the material. If you go over the 10-minute limit, keep going. I'll look at it and make a judgment, and you should let me know if you had internet failure. Sometimes you submit it, you think it's submitted, I don't see it. Contact me, we'll make sure that you're treated in the proper way for that. So next week, chapter 3, we keep going it through chapter 5, which is mise en scène, or the frame composition, and then you're ready for your first exam. And I put a date of June 23rd on it. It will be available, I think, at least a week ahead of that. Let me know if you need it earlier. Then we go through the second half of the course, same weekly progression. I will have chats on D2L available, so if you have questions or issues or concerns, we can talk through that chat room that's there. And don't wait. If there's not a chat schedule, it usually only lasts the first 2 weeks, then most of you are set. But if you need more, we can talk by email. I'll set up another chat so we can go through things. So the main thing is each week is a chapter. Each film discussion has a date. I'll get through those really quickly so you get feedback and see how you can improve. If you do well, you know, each step will be graded tougher for every film because I start off with a very basic one for the film discussions, and then it gets a little bit harder each time. So try to keep growing with the film terms and use you're learning. And you see here, I have a 1988 date. I'll take that out now that I see it, and you'll be not seeing that part. But the final film discussions due like the last week of class, the 24th, then the last full week of class is when you get the international film in, and then the final exam is due by August 4th. You can take it early. Again, I'll have that up there. So be looking at this. The final version you see on D2L might be a little different than this, but you know that's what we're trying to do. And with that, we wrap up our first look at it. I hope that this makes sense to you. But again, if it doesn't, you let me know, and we'll go over what you need. So thanks for taking the course. We'll keep in touch.